Bodybuilding encompasses more than just muscular size.
Because people do not come to a show to see bellies.
Successful bodybuilders balance size with symmetry, proportions, and aesthetics in equal measure. And no one embodied these last three ideals better than Frank Zane. With his chiseled musculature, impeccable posing, and philosophical approach to the sport, Frank Zane transformed the bodybuilding world and as such has already established his legacy, which transcends his physical form. This is the story of Frank Zane, the man who made bodybuilding an art form. Hi, and welcome to Quicks. I create videos which explore the entire life stories of prominent bodybuilders, YouTubers, and celebrities through engaging documentaries. And in this, we'll explore the entire life story of Frank Zane. To understand Frank Zane's journey, we must first start from the very beginning. Frank Zane was born on June 28, 1942 in the tough coal mining town of Kingston, Pennsylvania. As a shy and quiet child, Zane often found himself fighting with other lads, mostly in defense of his younger brother. At 14, his life changed forever when he found a bodybuilding magazine in his high school math class wastebasket. Inspired, Frank began his journey into bodybuilding. Zane would frequently train at the local YMCA and with a set of dumbbells he bought for home workouts. Zane's father unfortunately did not understand his dedication, stating, "Build yourself up by cutting the grass." Likewise, his mother was also not very supportive, at least in these early stages. But that only made Frank more determined. Over the next 3 years, Frank transformed his body, growing from 130 pounds to 160 pounds by the time he turned 17. By this point, Zane was addicted, and there was no turning back. During the summer months, Frank worked as an archery instructor at a Boy Scout camp in the Pocono Mountains. His dedication to training was so intense that he would hitchhike home 20 miles on weekends, carrying 55 pounds of weights with him, just so he wouldn't miss a workout. As such, his parents' attitude towards bodybuilding eventually shifted, as they transformed from overt detractors to supporters, especially his mother. Frank graduated at the top of his class and earned a scholarship to Wilkes College, where he studied secondary education, commencing in 1964. Despite this dedication to his studies, Zane continued his bodybuilding journey, winning over 24 trophies, as well as building his physique to an impressive 185 pounds lean. After earning his degree, Frank spent 2 years teaching math in Pennsylvania and New Jersey before moving to Tampa, Florida in 1966. He had bigger dreams and a growing ambition to conquer the bodybuilding world. Florida seemed to be the perfect environment to hone his craft and move to achieve this aim, and this dedication was about to pay off. Meanwhile, in sunny Florida, a young woman named Christine was living her best life, which was full of art, family, and fun in the sun. Christine had a natural artistic talent, and she excelled in high school, not just in art, but as a leader of her school pep squad. Little did she know, her life was about to intersect with Frank's in a fateful encounter. In September of 1966, Christine's younger sister Pat, who was one of Frank's students, thought it would be great to introduce him to Christine. That meeting changed both of their lives forever. Christine had never met someone so physically developed, and she was highly impressed, to say the least. Accordingly, Frank inspired her to start her own bodybuilding journey, an endeavor in which Christine would eventually excel herself. Christine very quickly enjoyed training, eventually becoming very passionate about bodybuilding. She subsequently competed in her own beauty contests while Frank pursued his dream of winning bodybuilding titles. By 1967, Christine had won the Miss Americana crown, while Frank finished second at the Mr America. They married shortly after and began a life focused on competition, vision, and shared goals. In 1968, Frank won the prestigious Mr America, and shortly after, he shocked the world by defeating Arnold Schwarzenegger to win the Mr Universe title in Miami. Frank therefore became one of only 3 men to defeat the Austrian Oak, with the trio being rounded out by Sergio Oliva and Chester Yorton. A few months later, Frank and Christine moved to Southern California, where Frank began teaching mathematics in Los Angeles, while Christine went on to college and taught women's exercise classes in Santa Monica. Frank then won the Mr. World title in Belgium in 1969 and the Mr. Universe title in 1970 and 1972 in London, England. Christine was now also thriving in competition, winning the Miss Universe Bikini crown in 1970. In In 1977, Frank earned a second bachelor's degree in psychology from California State University in Los Angeles, allowing him to teach all subjects, kindergarten through to grade 14. In 1990, he also gained a master's degree in experimental psychology from California State University in San Bernardino. Enjoying the video so far? Why not subscribe so you don't miss the next one? Click here. Many of Frank's fans may also know him by his stage name, or bodybuilding moniker, which was the Chemist. Zane was given this nickname due to his Bachelor of Science degree. Frank himself further explains.
I think I was much more meticulous than anybody else that competed at that time, and probably even now, because that was my background. I was trained in the sciences. I was prepared to teach chemistry. And so because of that, my exposure to chemistry and my analytical approach to everything with the journals and looking at things and correlating results with what I'm doing to achieve those results, I got nicknamed the Chemist.
After moving to Southern California, Frank Zane's career stepped into high gear. But his crowning achievements came when he won the Mr Olympia titles 3 times consecutively in 1977, 1978, and 1979.
And you know, I basically had a goal. I wanted to make the most of my physique and go to the top, win Mr Olympia, and however long it took. You know, 1977 was already my the years I competed, 72, 74, 75. It was my 5th try for Olympia in 77. So 5, 6, and 7 were the magic years for me, 77, 78, 79. And, but you know, it was all because my training conditions continued to improve. That was my goal. I knew that to get to the top, I'd have to have impeccable conditions for training. Everything had to be perfect, and it was.
I would be doing Frank a disservice if I left it there. So let's delve deeper into these 3 impressive victories on the biggest stage in bodybuilding. At the 1977 Mr Olympia, Zane was surrounded by talent. Robbie Robinson, Ken Waller, Dennis Tenorino, Ed Corney, Boycotting were all in attendance. As such, the caliber of competition was stellar, but Zane seemed unperturbed by this. As always, he demonstrated outstanding conditioning, proportions, and musculature, resulting in an impressive first place finish.
Ed Corney or Frank Zane?
Frank Zane! I was training with him.
Zane pipped Corney and Robinson, who placed 2nd and 3rd respectively. As such, Zane took home the almost incomprehensibly insufficient cash prize of $5,000 and the debutante Sandow Trophy.
In 1977, winning the Olympia meant a cash prize of $5,000, and the trophy, which I got to learn later, was the first year they gave out the Sandow Trophy. And so I'm the recipient of that, but I didn't know it at the time.
Of course, this level of monetary compensation pales in comparison to the $400,000 figure open bodybuilders take home these days. But remember that for previous years, bodybuilders were given $1,000 if they were lucky. Despite his strong showing, Frank was not finished establishing his legacy. Like the previous year, at the 1978 Mr Olympia contest, Frank had his work cut out for him. He was once again surrounded by a golden era talent with the likes of Roy Calendar, Dennis Tenorino, Boycotting, Danny Padilla, Ed Corney, and Bill Grant. Zane would once again outshine the competition with his trademark aesthetics and conditioning, which, paired with his beautiful posing, was too much for the competition to contend with. Frank would of course place first, with Robbie Robinson and Roy Calendar rounding out the podium finishes, placing 2nd and 3rd respectively. This year's first place prize money had thankfully increased to $15,000, tripling since the year prior. Despite a strong showing at this year's Olympia, Frank's best package had yet to be seen. The 1979 Olympia was perhaps Zane's most trying yet. I have of course stated previously that Zane was surrounded by talent at the 77 and 78 Olympia, and this year was no different. Dennis Tenorino, Roger Walker, Roy Calendar, Boycotting, Tom Platz once again graced the stage. Compounding this was the appearance of a well-developed Mike Mensah, adding another layer of competition and, most likely, nervousness for Zane. Despite this level of competition, Frank once again proved too much for the rest of the roster to overcome. Frank had won the check for $25,000, winning the overall title. Frank was once again thankful for the $10,000 increase from the year prior, but most importantly, took home the Sandow for the last time. Frank has previously called this his greatest Olympia win, most likely due to the elite lineup of adversaries, all of whom wanted his title. Frank also made a cheeky comment to Arnold after winning this contest, as Frank explains.
For the year before, 79 when I won the Olympia then, I embarrassed him, apparently. He asked me, he said, I was coming off stage with the trophy. He says, Frank, what's it like to win Olympia this year? I says, Arnold, it's even better than when I beat you for Mr. Universe. And that really, they aired that, and that really made him angry.
It's also worth once again mentioning the controversial 1980 Mr. Olympia. I've explained the controversy in my video on Mike Mensa, and will be creating a standalone video to explain it in greater detail. But due to the controversial result of the 1980 Mr. Olympia, which Arnold Schwarzenegger won with his star power and potential bias of the judges, Zane, Mensa and co. decided to boycott the 1981 Mr. Olympia, which Franco went on to win.
The 1980 Mr. Olympia left a lot of people very bitter. And for maybe some egotistical reason, we decided that we were not going to enter the 1981 Mr. Olympia.
These two shows are widely considered to be the most controversial competitions in Mr. Olympia's history, a sentiment which Frank Zane himself shares. However, Zane has also hinted that he also did not deserve to win the 1980 Mr. Olympia contest, stating, "Did I deserve to win? I was in great shape, but I could have been better." What is not widely known is that Frank Zane actually fell into his swimming pool and smashed his urethra just 8 weeks prior to the contest. This injury led to internal bleeding, which then led to shock, and Frank claims that he almost passed away. This was highly debilitating, yet he was still able to show up in great condition.
But what happened is I had an accident where I fell into my swimming pool and basically severed my urethra, smashed my urethra, and had internal bleed. You know, it was awful. I almost died. Went into shock. But I ended up going in the contest anyway. It was an error in judgment. I was encouraged by Arnold to go in.
As stated previously, the 1981 Mr. Olympia is widely considered equally as controversial as the 1980.
And Franco, who was always 2 steps behind Arnold, makes his comeback from a leg injury a few years before, when in the World's Strongest Man they dropped a refrigerator on his leg and broke it. And he won that contest. Now, to most people, that was a bigger controversy than Arnold. You can see why Arnold could have won, but not many people can see why Franco was the winner. Once again, Chris Dickerson had to settle for second place.
I covered this in my video on Franco Colombo, which is also my best performing video with over 250,000 views. I'll link it at the end, so I won't go into too much detail here. However, Frank has been very vocal in his disapproval of Franco taking home the Sandow this year. Here is my favourite clip.
I wish I wouldn't gone in that year and went in the next year when Colombo won it. You know, that was a travesty. Come on, give it to anybody, huh? I mean, that could have been incredible that year. But I passed the following year for political reasons. Everybody was mad at each other, so we didn't go back to compete that year in the Olympia.
Boyko also beautifully describes that CBS successfully gained the rights to film and broadcast the 1980 Olympia, and had made an agreement to do the same the following year. Unfortunately, neither of these came to fruition due to the controversies surrounding the result of the 1980 Mr. Olympia.
CBS went to Sydney with a full film crew, and they filmed the whole thing. Immediately after the contest was over with, the guy that was the director was a guy by the name of Sherman Egan. And he called up, he said, "I'd like to meet with you and Zane and Mincer." So we went to a meeting. He says, "Look, guys," he says, "this Mr. Olympia contest can never be shown on television." He says, "It's so obvious, even from the eyes of a non-professional, that the right person didn't win. We could never put this on television." So they still had a contract for 1981. And they paid the money because they were obligated, but they never even sent a film crew to cover it. And that's the last time the major networks have ever covered bodybuilding. I said, what happened in Sydney could never happen in the United States. Well, I was totally wrong, because the same thing happened again in 81. But people only choose to remember 1980. You'd have to go back and really, because I didn't go to the contest, I kept my word, but you'd have to ask people like Danny Padilla, Chris Dickerson, Roy Callender, Tom Platz, how they felt about it, because they must have really been discouraged after repeating the same thing the year before.
Overall, Zane's approach, focusing on aesthetics rather than sheer size, redefined what it meant to be a bodybuilding champion. He gained muscle slowly and methodically, ensuring quality over quantity. This, however, was a double-edged sword, as his focus on aesthetics meant that Zane was being outpaced as a shift towards mass became more palatable to the judges.
He had the type of physique that was very acceptable to the average guy. And I don't mean in any kind of negative, but the average guy could say, hey, if I trained hard, I could probably look close to that.
Despite this, Frank challenged the gradual shift from beautiful lines and conditioning to mass monster freak factor.
And you had a lot of fellows that were a lot bigger. Tough competition out there.
Yeah.
I don't know, what do you think?
I think I'm very happy about the results because I told you it's not the size that counts, it's the proportion and the symmetry. I had this opinion. He was the best poser today, had the best presentation, and he promoted himself all the way as being the winner this year. And he is the winner. He was confident, he came here to win.
I believe this is the main determinant as to why he amassed such a following and has inspired millions to start their own journeys, including myself. And perhaps inspiring millions is more impactful than winning bodybuilding competitions. The late John Meadows echoed a similar sentiment prior to his passing. John stated, quote, "To actually make a difference in people's lives is more important than being a figure in the industry. I'd rather be known as the guy that helped thousands and thousands of people and gave back to the community. That means so much more than, yeah, that's a guy who got third at the 2015 Tampa Pro." In 1980, Frank and Christine opened Zane Haven in Palm Springs, a bodybuilding learning center where enthusiasts could learn the art of bodybuilding. The facility grew, and by 1987 they had relocated to a larger estate, which was the former home of Cary Grant in Palm Springs. Frank then further developed the program, renaming and rebranding to the Zane Experience, a comprehensive program combining weight training, nutrition, stress management, and relaxation. Frank's innovative approach extended to creating his own bodybuilding equipment, like his patented leg blaster, and also teaching thousands through his fitness seminars. Now he was more than just a champion. He became a teacher and a mentor, helping people achieve their own goals in bodybuilding and life overall. Throughout his career, Zane has featured on over 60 magazines including Iron Man, Muscle Mag, Muscle Builder, and Flex. This is undoubtedly due to his star power, but perhaps a more definitive reason. Most notably, if you ask the average male what they strive to look like in their endeavor to achieve an aesthetic physique, they would most likely mention or show you a picture of Frank Zane. In fact, in a bodybuilding poll, this actually proved to be true, and the decision makers at all major magazines knew this, which is why Frank was one of their go-to guys. Today, Frank is 82 years young and is a testament to what can be achieved with focus, intellect, and passion. Now, speaking of legacy, Franco Colombo's legacy has been well established through his success on the bodybuilding stage, as well as his humility and professionalism. Why not watch my best performing video next? If that's the case, why not click like and subscribe to support me in my aim to achieve the elusive 1,000 subscribers?